I clutch grandmother Lila's scarf, the one she knitted with her own patient hands, and I press the soft threads against my skin as if the warmth might bring her spirit close again. The funeral parlor reeks faintly of polished wood and cheap floral sprays, a blend that feels sterile, almost hostile. I settle deeper into the corner chair, hoping to make myself invisible among the heavy silence and shallow murmurs. From my seat, I watch my family put on their performance of grief. Mom dabs at her eyes with a monogrammed handkerchief, releasing sobs that bounce off the dark wooden walls, each one sounding like a rehearsed line from a script. She disappears into the bathroom often, returning moments later with her mascara perfectly reapplied and her phone always in her manicured grip. The snap of her camera breaks the hush as she poses beside the shining casket, muttering that the lighting ruins the effect before reviewing her pictures with cold detachment. Dad, by the entrance, fills the air with tension as he argues with the funeral director. His voice spikes when he complains about the costs, fingers jabbing at his phone screen. He hisses about stock alerts and drops his tone only when he notices people staring. To him, this tragedy is nothing but a disruption, an obstacle interfering with market updates. Across from me, my brother Cole sprawls with his shoulders curved, eyes glued to the glow of his cryptocurrency app. He scrolls endlessly, not lifting his gaze even when distant relatives stop by to offer gentle words of sympathy. I shut my eyes and drift to memories of weekends spent at Grandma and Grandpa's modest house. The smell of warm cinnamon rolls on Sunday mornings lingers in my mind. I see Grandpa Walter guiding my small hands as we change the oil in his old delivery truck, his steady voice teaching me that understanding how things work means far more than simply buying something new. Celeste girl, he would say, his words carrying the weight of lessons no classroom could offer. A tear, honest and unbidden, trails down my cheek. Later, we gather in Aaron Feldman's office, the family attorney whose space smells faintly of pipe tobacco and is lined with heavy shelves of leather-bound law books. Mom immediately claims the center chair, arranging herself as though she were the subject of a portrait. Dad takes his usual stance behind her, his palms resting on the chair back, presenting himself as the figure in charge. "We should put the Harbor House on the market right away," Mom remarks, inspecting her nails like she's already counting the profit. "The view alone will bring in top dollar." Dad nods in agreement, suggesting the boat should sell quickly too, his eyes gleaming at the thought. "And don't forget the antiques." Cole finally looks up from his screen, cutting in with impatience. "Let's not rush. I already have potential buyers for Grandpa's trucks. That money could fuel my startup." His tone is sharp, almost proud, until Aaron clears his throat, silencing them with the authority of the moment. Aaron lays a thick document on the desk, his expression unreadable as his gaze flicks briefly toward me. As executor of Walter and Lila Monroe's estate, he begins with formal precision. I am bound to read their wishes word for word. My family leans forward as he adjusts his glasses, each legal phrase washing over us until the pause comes. He breathes in, steadies himself, then delivers the blow. "I hereby bequeath the entire estate, valued at roughly $31.5 million, to my granddaughter, Celeste Elizabeth Martin." The room freezes, the silence heavy like the air before a storm breaks. My ears ring, convinced I must have misheard. Dad repeats the words slowly, dangerously, his voice razor thin. "The entire estate?" Mom's false smile collapses. There has to be some mistake. Cole shoots up from his seat, his glare piercing through me. "What did you do?" he demands, accusing me of manipulation. The sting of his words burns worse than any physical strike. I stumble for words. "I didn't know, I swear." My voice cracks, but Aaron raises his hand, calling for calm, his eyes unwavering. Anticipating this very moment, Walter and Lila left more than papers. Aaron clicks his computer, turning the screen toward us. There, framed by their porch swing, sit my grandparents. They look tired yet determined. "If you're watching this," Grandpa begins, "then our decision has clearly startled you," Grandma's gentle voice follows. Gregory, Serena, Cole. We've heard the way you speak when you thought we weren't listening. We've seen how you calculated our worth long before we were gone. My throat tightens as my memories resurface, flooding me with images of love and lessons I never took for granted. I remember being dropped off at their simple home while my parents attended endless networking events. I remember teenage afternoons helping Grandpa maintain his small truck fleet, the very one that became the backbone of a shipping empire. I recall Grandma's quiet teachings how to knead dough, tend gardens, and live with authenticity instead of show. Celeste loved us for who we were, Grandma says, tears brimming in her eyes. Not for what we could hand her. The video ends, and Aaron closes his laptop with deliberate care, sealing the finality of their choice. Outside in the parking lot, Dad corners me by my car, his breath hot, his words sharp as knives. Tomorrow, you'll transfer control to me, he orders, his voice low and full of threat. Mom glides to his side, her tone sugar-coated. Darling, you can't manage such wealth alone. Leave it to those with experience. Cole looms behind, his voice heavy with menace. Remember family loyalty, Celeste. Remember who truly protects you. My hand grips the keys so tightly that the metal cuts into my palm, grounding me against their looming shadows. I manage to whisper, I need time to think. Though my voice trembles, Dad's expression hardens instantly. Don't forget, Celeste, who owns your apartment building. Don't forget how easily one call can leave you without a roof. Their words trail behind them as they walk away together, united in entitlement, their figures dark against the fading light. I stand alone, my pulse racing, the scarf still in my hands, knowing that my grandparents' love and their trust was both gift and burden, one I now must guard with everything I have. I stand frozen, my keys digging into my palm, the reality of inheriting over $31 million and the immense trust my grandparents placed in me pressing down like a crushing weight. That night, in my cramped studio apartment, I pace back and forth as panic claws its way through my chest. Every possession I own fits within these four walls, and my modest salary as a school counselor barely stretches to cover rent. With no savings, no safety net, I collapse onto my bed, still clutching Grandma's scarf like a lifeline. A sudden heavy pounding rattles my door, making me jolt upright. A gruff voice calls out, claiming to be building management, while at the same moment my phone lights up with Aaron's name. When I answer, his tone is sharp, urgent. Celeste, he says quickly, they're planning to force you out. It's unlawful, but that won't stop them from trying. You need to leave, right away. My vision blurs with tears as I scramble to gather essentials, shoving clothes and documents into a backpack, my hands trembling so violently I can barely zip it. I never imagined that inheriting a fortune would feel less like security and more like standing on a cliff edge with the ground crumbling beneath me. Wrapping Grandma's scarf tightly around my neck, I swear I can almost hear her whisper, "Stand your ground, Celeste. Some things are worth every fight." The next morning, rain lashes the windshield as I drive toward Grandma and Grandpa's house in Gig Harbor. The sprawling craftsman-style home sits quietly back from the road, its cedar siding and stone details blending with the damp gray landscape. Despite its waterfront setting and immense value, it carries a sense of modesty, a stark contrast to the flashy, oversized mansions that have sprung up nearby over the years. I sit for a long moment, watching rivulets of rain chase each other down the glass, my heart pounding so hard it hurts. Only one day ago, I was fleeing my apartment with nothing but a backpack, and now I am about to step into a house worth millions, a place that somehow, impossibly, belongs to me. Before I can reach the door, it opens, and Miguel Alvarez appears in the entryway. His weathered features are solemn, lined with years of loyalty. For over 15 years, he managed this estate, becoming more family than any title of employee could capture. His voice trembles as he greets me. "Miss Celeste, welcome home." Stepping inside, I drip rainwater onto the worn oak floors. The air carries the familiar scent of lemon oil and cinnamon, as if my grandparents' presence still lingers here. Miguel presses a small brass key into my hand. "She wanted you to have this," he says softly, "if things ever turned out this way." He leads me to Grandpa's study, where a heavy antique desk commands the room. The key slides into the bottom drawer, unlocking a bundle wrapped in faded ribbon. A leather journal, weathered by time and use. Miguel's hand rests gently on my shoulder before he leaves me to read in solitude. Curling into Grandpa's old reading chair by the fireplace, I draw my knees beneath me and open the journal. The first entry dates back a full decade. Gregory visited today, asking once again for another loan. He claimed his new investment was certain to triple within months. When Walter hesitated, Gregory reminded us about how costly Cole's tuition had become. Reluctantly, we wrote the check. Walter doubts we'll ever see the money again. My stomach twists. I flip ahead several months, reading how Gregory conveniently acted as if repayment had already been made when asked. Walter says it's only money, and perhaps I should let it go. But the repetition unsettles me. My fingers shake as I turn page after page. Serena came with designers to evaluate the house, insisting everything looked outdated. They measured, took photographs, and she pointed out how worn the rooms appeared. Later, I found her photographing the family silver passed down from Walter's mother. When she noticed me, she startled, stammering something about needing inspiration for party decorations. The door creaks and June Porter, who has served this household faithfully for over 2 decades, steps inside carrying a tray of tea. Her eyes are rimmed red with grief. "You're reading Mrs. Lila's journals," she says gently, more as fact than question. "Did you know all this?" I whisper, gesturing at the open pages. June sets the tray down carefully. "I kept records of my own," she admits. "Mrs. Lila asked me to." She leaves briefly and returns with a large banker's box filled with files. She begins laying documents out. Loan agreements your father never honored, proposals from your brother's failed ventures, all defaulted. She places a heavy folder on top, her voice steady but heavy with sadness. "These are copies of property transfers your mother tried to push through just months before Mrs. Lila's death. She claimed they were estate updates, but in truth, they were meant to shift ownership quietly." I spread the papers across the desk, my chest tightening. Thousands upon thousands of dollars funneled into Dad's fruitless businesses. Cole's repeated pleas for startup money that never succeeded. And Mom's sly attempts to steal property while their parents were still alive. They were draining them for years. "For years," I whisper, stunned. "Yes," June confirms, her tone heavy. "Your grandfather always clung to hope in his son. But your grandmother was not so blind." My eyes fall on an entry from Christmas 2 years ago. Cole had drunk too much wine at dinner. Thinking we were asleep, I overheard him laughing with Gregory, boasting that once the old folks died, they'd be set for life. Gregory laughed back, and my stomach knots reading the words. I remember that Christmas well. I had worked double shifts just to afford the train ticket home. Mom mocked my plain sweater at dinner, while Cole flaunted his gleaming designer watch. The sharp sound of the doorbell jolts me from the page. June glances at her watch knowingly. "That will be Mr. Shaw and Miss Park." Marcus Shaw enters first, a leather portfolio tucked under his arm. His normally composed features etched with tension. For over 20 years, he has been the one steady presence guiding Grandpa's financial matters. He takes my hand, his grip firm. "Celeste, I've brought the complete portfolio," he says with measured urgency. "You need to see the full picture of what you're protecting." Moments later, Evelyn Park steps in behind him, her silver hair pulled tightly back, her demeanor sharp and uncompromising. Grandpa's longtime business partner at Summit Freight, who had worked beside him for 3 full decades, enters carrying a thick stack of company records. Without preamble, she explains that employees have noticed unfamiliar visitors prowling around, asking detailed questions about shipping routes and long-standing client contracts. Someone is digging where they don't belong. Aaron arrives a few minutes later, legal folders tucked neatly under his arm, his expression grim. "I've already drafted preliminary protective measures," Aaron says as he lays the papers out. "We must act quickly before the damage spreads." They gather around the large dining table, forming a circle of defense I never imagined I would need. Each person adds a piece to the story, revealing the scope of the empire my grandparents painstakingly built, and exposing how deliberately my parents and brother tried to pull it apart. My phone buzzes with a new voicemail. When I hit play, Dad's voice fills the air, his tone edged with menace. "You don't understand what you're facing, Celeste. This can end peacefully for all of us, or it can turn very ugly. Your choice." Before I can respond, the doorbell rings again. A courier drops off a thick manila envelope with no sender listed. Inside are photographs of me as a child, my face crossed out in red ink. "This is escalating fast," Aaron mutters, slipping the photos into an evidence bag. The reports keep coming. Summit workers complain about mysterious interrogations. My brother has started posting online about my supposed mental instability, painting me as unfit. My mother has even called my workplace, spreading false concerns about my emotional state. My hand trembles so badly I nearly drop my teacup. "What do we do now?" I ask, my voice small. Aaron pulls fresh documents from his briefcase. "We file for emergency protective orders. With everything we have, Judge Carter will sign them immediately." "There's another matter," June adds gently. "Miss Leela set aside the Port Orchard cottage in a separate trust. It isn't tied to the estate, a safe place if things worsen. I think of my students, the kids who rely on me showing up each day. A leave of absence may be my only option." The weight of it all slams into me like a physical blow. I step outside into Grandma's garden, glistening with rain, the roses nearly ready to bloom. I kneel, pressing my hands into the damp soil. "I never wanted this money," I whisper. "I just wanted them." But as I rise and glance back at the house where unexpected allies wait for me, I realize my grandparents left me more than wealth. They left truth, and people willing to stand beside me to protect it. By the third morning living in what is now my home, I sit at the kitchen table, coffee untouched and growing cold as my eyes lock on the newspaper headline, "Family Questions Suspicious Inheritance." My hand shakes as I scan the article. Unnamed relatives allege Grandma Lila suffered from declining capacity in her last months. "They're really doing this," I whisper into the empty room. My phone buzzes again. Aaron's text flashes. Gregory filed an emergency petition claiming Lila was incompetent when she signed the will. "Call me." Before I can dial, a notification fills the screen. It's my mother. Her tearful image captured on a morning show as she laments, voice breaking, about her fears of elder exploitation. The caption beneath reads, "Heartbroken daughter demands justice over possible elder abuse." The walls of the house seem to close in. I force myself to breathe the way I tell my anxious students to slowly, deliberately. A gentle knock pulls me back. Miguel steps in, his voice low. "Miss Celeste, you need to see this." He hands me his tablet, showing a brand new social media group. "Justice for the Monroe Legacy," created overnight by Cole, already has over 400 followers. Familiar names fill the comment section, voicing concern. Summit Freight has also received anonymous letters questioning the company's stability, Miguel adds, his face lined with worry. "They're attacking from every direction," I whisper, my own voice sounding strange to my ears. "Your grandfather expected this," Miguel replies, gesturing toward the study. "Perhaps it's time you read his business journals." In the oak-paneled study still scented faintly of pipe tobacco, I open a leather-bound volume dated 1987. When Summit Freight nearly collapsed during the recession, Grandpa's precise handwriting covers the page. Third Bank refused us another loan today. Lila says we may have to sell the house. I cannot risk our home. When the world tells you to give up, that's when you find your backbone. Tomorrow I'll ask the drivers to accept temporary pay changes until we survive this storm. My fingertips trace the inked grooves, tears clouding my vision. There's more, Miguel says softly, opening Grandma's desk drawer. He pulls out a small USB drive. Mrs. Lila installed security cameras last year without telling your parents. On Grandpa's computer, I watch the footage recorded on the day of the funeral. My father and Cole move systematically from room to room, checking prices on their phones, slipping smaller valuables into their coats. My mother photographs antiques and silverware between wiping away fabricated tears. They were stealing, I whisper, the words breaking in my throat. Mrs. Lila knew and documented everything. The security system beeps, startling me. Miguel checks his phone, his face tightening. They're at the gates. All of them. My heart pounds as I step to the front window. 3 vehicles idle just beyond the wrought iron gates. Dad's polished Mercedes, Mom's glossy Range Rover, Cole's gleaming Tesla. Should I call Aaron? Miguel asks. I square my shoulders, summoning the strength Grandpa wrote about. No, I'll deal with this myself. The intercom crackles and Dad's commanding voice fills the entryway. Celeste, open the gates. We're here for the family heirlooms that rightfully belong to us all. I press the button, my pulse steadying. I'll meet you on the front steps. Outside, summer sun blazes down as I walk onto the wide limestone stairs, standing alone to face them. The gates creak open automatically, metal grinding softly against stone. I want every neighbor, every passerby, to witness whatever unfolds here. Dad strides forward first, briefcase swinging at his side, face outwardly calm but eyes sharp and calculating. Mom trails close behind, camera ready in her hand, dressed in a carefully chosen black outfit meant to project dignity. Cole lingers in the back, shoulders hunched, his expression clouded with unease. This has dragged on long enough, Dad declares, his voice booming with the practiced authority of a boardroom presentation. We'll begin with grandmother's silver service and the Tiffany lamps, he states firmly. Those items are explicitly listed in the will as part of my inheritance. I counter, forcing steadiness into my voice though my chest pounds. That will is being contested, Mom cuts in, her mask of maternal concern slipping for an instant. Sweetheart, you're drowning in matters you don't understand. Let us take control until the courts decide. Cole suddenly steps forward, attempting to move past me up the steps. I'll just grab my things from my old room while we... His words die in his throat as security lights blaze to life, and a low mechanical hum fills the air. Red indicators flash along the property line, Aaron's newly installed defense system clicking into place. The estate is now fully monitored, I explain coolly. Cameras streaming directly to secure servers. Mom gasps with deliberate theatrics, clutching her chest before collapsing in slow motion onto the manicured lawn. My own daughter treating us like criminals, she laments loudly. The crunch of tires on gravel interrupts her performance. Miguel emerges from the side, carrying a thick leather binder. Miss Celeste, here is the complete inventory of household possessions, with proof of provenance, just as you asked. June steps into view next, her compact frame steady, her silver hair pinned neatly. I saw them removing items after the funeral, she announces firmly. I have already sworn and provided my statement to Mr. Feldman. Behind them, a silver sedan glides up. Evelyn Park steps out, followed by several Summit Freight employees in company polos. We came to support you, Evelyn says clearly, voice ringing with conviction. Walter and Lila built this company on integrity, and we will stand by their wishes. Aaron's BMW arrives moments later. He steps out with his portfolio, adjusting his glasses. Perfect timing, he says briskly. I was preparing to update Celeste on the restraining order. But now that you're all here, I can serve these documents in person. Dad's face flushes crimson as Aaron approaches with the stack of papers. Mom, still sprawled on the grass, has already abandoned her fake fainting spell, watching instead with calculating eyes as the scene grows. Neighbors begin gathering at the street's edge. Familiar faces of my grandparents' friends, their presence steady and silent. For the first time, I feel a strength inside me I didn't know existed. I step forward, my words carrying across the hushed driveway. This ends today. Every word spoken here is being recorded. Every action preserved on film. I continue. You've revealed your true selves, and now everyone else sees it too. A news van slows at the gates, its logo bold against the white paint. Who called the press? Dad snarls, his mask cracking. We did, Mrs. Henderson calls out from across the street, holding up her phone proudly. Neighborhood watch. We take care of our own. For the first time since Grandma's passing, I see genuine fear flicker in my father's eyes. He glances at the growing crowd, at the cameras, at Aaron's outstretched documents. This isn't finished, he mutters, but he's already retreating toward his Mercedes. Mom recovers quickly, hurrying after him, sparing only a quick glance toward the waiting journalists. Cole lingers, his eyes meeting mine for the first time in days. Something unreadable flickers across his face before he follows them. That evening, silence fills my grandparents' bedroom, preserved just as they left it. Grandma's knitting basket rests by her chair, needles protruding from an unfinished blue scarf. On Grandpa's nightstand sit his folded reading glasses, beside a half-read mystery novel. The grief I've kept contained crashes down like a wave. I sink onto their bed, clutching one of Grandma's needles in my palm, whispering into the emptiness. I don't know if I can become who they believed I could be. Dawn finds me still there, pale light spilling through lace curtains. What settles inside me is not peace, but something stronger, resolve. Later that morning, the team gathers in Grandpa's study. Aaron spreads legal folders across the polished desk. Marcus taps through financial projections on his tablet. Evelyn lays out Summit's operational reports. I lower myself into Grandpa's seat at the head of the table, no longer feeling like an outsider. We need a comprehensive strategy, I say firmly, not just defense, but a plan to build forward. Aaron slides injunction papers across to me. Marcus explains new safeguards on accounts and investments. Evelyn adds that employee morale has stabilized once they heard my pledge to protect jobs. We're not only defending, I echo, remembering Grandpa's words. We're building. A soft knock interrupts. June enters carrying a dusty cardboard box. Found this in the attic storage, she explains. The neat handwriting on the label is unmistakably Grandma's. In case of Gregory. Inside are decades of organized materials, letters, taped conversations, financial statements, all meticulously dated. At the bottom, wrapped carefully in acid-free paper, rests a small leather-bound book. My breath catches as I lift it out gently. Is this what I think it is? I ask. June nods, her gaze steady. Mrs. Lila said you'd recognize it when the time came. In my hands lies Grandpa Walter's original ledger from 1962, the founding document of Summit Freight. The very framework that could make challenging their will nearly impossible. Our meeting breaks with a renewed sense of purpose. For the first time since the inheritance storm exploded, I don't just feel the backbone my grandfather always carried, but something solid rising inside me too, my own. 1 week later, I am no longer simply reacting. I am preparing to defend what is lawfully mine and safeguard the legacy that Walter and Lila Monroe entrusted to me. I sit at Grandpa Walter's heavy oak desk, tracing the grooves along its worn edges where his hands rested for so many years. The leather chair still holds the faint impression of his frame, a quiet reassurance as I lift the receiver for what feels like the 100th call. Mr. Delgado, this is Celeste Martin, thank you for taking my call. I straighten in the chair, summoning Grandpa's calm confidence. I want to discuss expanding the profit-sharing program for Summit's drivers, effective immediately. The morning flies by in a blur of conversations and strategy sessions, each piece sliding into place like a puzzle my grandparents left for me to solve. Drivers, mechanics with grease-stained hands, and curious office staff come in waves through the study, carrying both weariness and hope. Each person leaves standing a little taller, their eyes brighter. My grandfather always said a company's strength rests in its people, not in numbers on a ledger. Beginning next month, I announced to the department heads, every employee will join the expanded profit-sharing program. Healthcare coverage will now include dependents, and the education fund will double. Evelyn distributes carefully prepared packets, while Marcus projects financial models that prove the sustainability of every promise. The applause that follows is warm and real, so unlike the hollow praise my mother cultivates online. Later, as I scan the community needs assessment spread across the desk, I speak into the phone. Dr. Reynolds. The foundation wants to prioritize vocational training scholarships. My grandfather valued the dignity of skilled work. On the other end, the expert's voice brims with excitement about timelines and rollouts, while I scribble notes and circle areas of highest impact. My phone vibrates with a message from Aaron. Gregory has contacted 3 major clients, spreading doubts about Summit's stability. A knot tightens in my chest. Moments later, the desk phone rings. Summit's operations manager reports that my mother visited my school, cornering the principal with fabricated stories about my supposed instability. Principal Kovacs wasn't fooled, he assures me. He thought she appeared far more unhinged than I ever have. A knock at the door interrupts. Miguel enters, his face grim, holding a sealed courier package. Delivered anonymously. Inside, I find a thick folder labeled, Evidence of Manipulation. Its contents are absurd old photos of me with my grandparents marked with red notes, doctored email printouts of psychological assessments, medical records with passages highlighted to imply undue influence. I flip to the last page and burst into sudden laughter. They mistakenly included copies of their own threatening emails to Grandma Lila, complete with Gregory's signature and demands for property transfers she refused to sign. They are unraveling, Aaron says when I call him, his voice calm. It's good we anticipated this. The next morning dawns bright and cool. I dress for the Chamber of Commerce luncheon, aware from our sources that my father planned this event as a public ambush, a stage to humiliate me before Gig Harbor's business leaders. Ready? Evelyn asks as our car glides into the country club parking lot. Marcus straightens his tie. Stay calm. No matter what. He reminds me. The banquet hall hushes as we walk in. Gregory spots us instantly, his face darkening, his shoulders coiling like a predator. Dozens of eyes follow us as we take our reserved seats. I have barely settled when Dad approaches, his voice pitched to Carrie. There she is, the girl tearing apart our family's legacy. Walter would be ashamed of what you've done to Summit Freight. Before I can rise, Chamber President Jack Wilson taps his water glass. Actually, Gregory, we are here to honor Summit Freight today for 40 years of integrity and service. Walter Monroe created this award and we are proud to present it to his chosen successor. Applause erupts across the hall as Jack beckons me to the podium. My legs feel like lead, but I walk forward, aware of Dad's reddening face and Mom's brittle smile frozen in place. Accepting the Crystal Award, I speak firmly. My grandparents built Summit Freight on 2 pillars: excellence in service and investment in people. Their true legacy is not measured in dollars but in the lives they improved. The ovation rises like a wave. Former drivers step forward with stories of Grandpa helping them through hard times. Charity leaders praise Grandma's quiet acts of generosity. The community college president announces the launch of a vocational scholarship, funded by the Monroe Foundation. Later, Aaron's carefully worded press release highlighting Summit's employee protections makes the evening news. Alongside statements from June and Miguel about how my parents treated my grandparents in their final years. The ripple effect spreads quickly. Gregory's business partners distance themselves. Mom's once close social circle excludes her from fundraisers. Cole's investors, alarmed by the documented pattern of manipulation, quietly withdraw. What began as an attempt to discredit me has turned into a mirror reflecting their own corruption, and, for the first time, I feel like I am not just surviving, but truly carrying my grandparents' torch forward. The country club board announces that my parents' membership is now under review. I decline every interview request, every television invitation, every chance to publicly attack them. We focus on building, not tearing down, I tell Miguel, as he hands me yet another glossy morning show invitation. The first fracture appears 3 nights later. My phone buzzes at 11:36. Mom's ringtone breaking the silence. Her sobs filter through the line, thick with what sounds like genuine anguish. Celeste, this isn't what I wanted. You must believe me. I stay silent, letting the weight of her words hang. Your father, she begins, then stops, voice faltering. I never thought it would go this far. The second crack follows the next morning in a message from Cole. Dad's losing it. I didn't know about the loans he took in my name. Can we talk? Just the two of us? Hours later, Gregory's own attorney contacts Aaron, requesting a private meeting without his client present. They're collapsing from the inside, Aaron tells me after. That evening, I sit alone on the porch swing where Grandma and Grandpa spent countless nights together, my journal open in my lap. The pen hovers before finally scratching across the page. Victory feels hollow when it means dismantling your own family. But the alternative? To surrender the legacy they placed in my hands? To allow the exploitation they spent their lives fighting against? A gentle breeze drifts through the garden, carrying the scent of Grandma's roses, blooming year after year as if she were still tending them herself. Holding firm doesn't always feel like triumph, I write. But sometimes it is the only way to honor what matters most. 1 week later, I arrange the final confrontation. I set Grandpa's antique pocket watch on the polished conference table, its steady tick a reminder that time reveals all. From the foyer, the grandfather clock chimes 10 as I hear car doors slam outside. They're here, ready? Aaron asks, adjusting his tie with measured calm. I nod, fingers smoothing over Grandma Lila's scarf draped around my shoulders. As ready as I will ever be. Miguel opens the door, his face carefully neutral, as he escorts my family into the home they once tried to strip bare, while my grandparents' memory was still fresh in the ground. Dad enters first, confidence slipping when he sees Judge Elaine Carter seated at the table. Mom glides in next, her rehearsed smile stiffening as she notices Daniel Brooks, retired police chief and Grandpa's old fishing companion, standing watch by the window. What is this? Dad demands sharply. We agreed to a family meeting, not a public tribunal. We agreed to mediation, I correct evenly. These are the mediators I've chosen. Cole shuffles in last, eyes darting between us. His collar tugged nervously. Our gazes meet for a fleeting second, and shame flickers in his expression. Mom stretches her arms toward me. Darling, let's talk privately. Family matters should remain within family. Family matters require real family, I interrupt, my tone steadier than my heartbeat. Please sit. Dad's face darkens, crimson rising. I refuse to take part in this circus, he growls. Either clear the room or we leave. Transparency or nothing. I say firmly, gesturing to the chairs. The choice is yours. After a tense silence, they sit. Aaron slides folders in front of each with careful precision. Exhibit A, he announces, and the screen glows to life, displaying security footage from Walter and Lila's home the night after the funeral. Dad and Cole appear, loading paintings into the SUV under cover of darkness. Mom wraps silver candlesticks in her scarf. Cole shifts uneasily. Those heirlooms were being safeguarded, Dad insists. But his voice quivers with doubt. Exhibit B, Aaron continues, bringing up financial records showing millions in unpaid loans tied to Dad's failed ventures. Exhibit C reveals Mom's attempt to transfer property deeds while Grandma lay hospitalized, followed by Cole's defaulted startups and recorded calls planning asset division before Grandpa had even passed away. Rage builds visibly in Dad, his knuckles whitening around the folder. Mom's carefully built facade collapses, mascara streaking down her cheeks. Cole stares at the table, shoulders hunched. Judge Carter writes notes without expression, while Daniel shifts closer when Dad's breathing grows erratic. Aaron places Grandma's journal on the desk, in her own handwriting. Dated the 14th of June last year, she writes, Gregory demanded another $100,000 today. When I reminded him of unpaid loans, he threatened that we wouldn't want Cole to learn certain family secrets. Walter and I have decided Celeste is the only hope to preserve what we built. The room falls silent except for Mom's muffled sobs. You manipulated them, Dad spits, trembling with rage. You turned them against us. No, I answer, my calm surprising even me. Your own actions have spoken louder than I ever could. I push forward a single document. This is my offer. A small trust fund for each of you, conditional on returning every item taken from this house and ending all communication with me or anyone tied to Summit Freight or the Monroe Foundation. Dad laughs bitterly. Or what? Or I press charges for theft, elder abuse, and fraud, all documented, witnessed by a sitting judge and a former police chief. You've poisoned everyone against us, Dad shouts, slamming his fist on the table. No, Dad, I meet his eyes directly. You've done that all by yourself. The grandfather clock ticks steadily in the silence that follows. 10 long minutes pass before Dad snatches the pen. Aaron slides toward him, his signature scratching across the page as the weight of consequence finally presses down. The scratching of their signatures feels final, like closing the last chapter of a book I never wanted to write. As they leave, Cole lingers at the doorway, his face caught between regret and loyalty. For a moment, I almost believe he might stay, might finally choose a different path. But then Dad barks his name, sharp as a whip, and he lowers his head, trailing after them. When the door clicks shut, the tension seeps from my body in a shaky exhale. Aaron places a steady hand on my shoulder. Judge Carter gives a small approving nod. Daniel's weathered features soften into a quiet smile. Walter would be proud, he says. Standing your ground isn't about shouting the loudest, it's about knowing when the line has been crossed and refusing to step back. I touch Grandma's scarf still wrapped around my neck, its softness grounding me. I never wanted their fortune, I whisper. I only ever wanted family. Aaron nods, his eyes kind. That's exactly why your grandparents trusted you to protect everything they built. Outside, car doors slam and engines roar to life. As they drive away, something deep inside me knows it is for the last time. I am their legacy now, not the money, but their values and their unshakable principles. Some boundaries, once drawn, must never be crossed again. 6 months after that final confrontation, my life has steadied into rhythm. I still arrive at school by 7:30, where my small counseling office offers refuge, a place of listening and guidance. The brass nameplate reading, Celeste Martin, Student Counselor, remains the title I treasure most, even though trust documents identify me with grander words like executor and beneficiary. This morning, a newspaper clipping sits neatly on my desk. Summit Freight has reported record profits under its new employee ownership model. Walter's trucks still roll down the familiar streets, but now 68 drivers hold stakes in their own futures. "Miss Martin?" My assistant calls gently, peeking her head in. "Your foundation guests are here." The Lila and Walter Monroe Foundation exists on paper and in $12 million of carefully managed funds. But today it becomes something tangible. 5 nervous students wait in the conference room, clutching scholarship packets in their hands. Their eyes widen as I explain how the vocational training fund works: full tuition, living stipends, and guaranteed apprenticeships. "My grandparents believed in building things that would last," I tell them. "Now you are part of that legacy." Later, I drive out to the Harbor House. The property feels lighter now, as if years of secrecy have finally lifted. I park beside Evelyn's sensible sedan and Marcus's worn Volvo. Inside, the dining table that once witnessed my family's greed now holds celebration. June lays out Lila's china with practiced care, while Miguel arranges Walter's beloved chess set nearby. "Remember our first meeting here?" Aaron says as he sets glasses of water. "You could barely speak without trembling." Evelyn chuckles. "Hard to believe this is the same Celeste who faced Gregory Martin at the gates." I run my hand along the table's edge, memory stirring. Same house, same people, but a very different me. We toast with sparkling cider when Marcus announces the Foundation's first major project, a 3-dimensional printing lab for the community college's technical program. "Lila and Walter would be proud of all you've accomplished," Miguel says, his eyes glistening. That night I leaf through my therapy journal, tracing my journey from panic attacks to purpose. Pages once filled with grief exercises now carry recipes from Lila's collection, taught to me by June. In the margins of Walter's chess notes are pressed flowers from the cottage garden. The old cat, Professor, finally curls beside me in Lila's favorite chair, allowing my hand to stroke his ears. 6 months ago, he hissed whenever I entered. Healing takes many forms. My phone buzzes with familiar reminders of old patterns. Gregory's business has collapsed, and he begs for a bridge loan. Hours later, Serena sends an application for a seat on the foundation board. Before bed, Cole texts about a new startup. "This one different," he swears. The requests are endless, but my responses remain the same: polite, firm refusals. On my 30th birthday, I am surprised by a small gathering at the cottage. There are no extravagant gifts, only thoughtful tokens. A vintage edition of my favorite novel, seed packets from June's garden, a hand-knitted scarf. Evelyn raises her glass to choosing family by their actions, not their blood. Aaron updates us on the legal protections now permanent, while Marcus shares the Foundation's growing community reach. The following Tuesday, a sophomore sits nervously in my office, her story echoing my own past. "They say I owe them," she whispers, "that everything they've done was for me." I listen quietly, my heart aching with recognition. When she finishes, I hand her a packet carefully prepared. Therapy options, legal contacts, worksheets on setting boundaries. "Your worth isn't measured by their approval." I tell her the very words I once needed myself. At sunset, I wander the grounds, pausing at the grove where we planted one tree for each scholarship recipient. A simple bench bears a plaque. "Legacy lives through love, Lila and Walter." I open Lila's journal to its final blank pages and begin writing my own entries. Looking up, I see the warm glow spilling from the house windows, a reminder that love and integrity still light the path forward. Peace fills me not from wealth, but from knowing that the inheritance that truly mattered was never in the bank accounts. It was always in the lessons, the values, and the love they left behind.